Hello, lovely people of the universe. I'm going to start this off a little bit differently because it's been the holiday, but it's been an it's been an interesting one. And I say interesting for lack of a better word that doesn't sound bitter. I've watched a lot of people have a. Well, let me start off by saying I hope that you had a very nice holiday, whatever holiday you celebrate. I'm assuming most people that will hear me probably celebrate Christmas. But if I got some Jews out there, a couple Jews, that's such a dickish thing to say anymore, isn't it? But any folks of the Jewish faith and bloodlines, I don't have any Jewish people listening to me, I'm sure, or probably any other people of different cultural or persuasion. It's not really a persuasion or an orientation. I'm getting caught up in some bullshit semantics and fucking words right now. So the reason I have been dragging my feet in getting out a new podcast is that it seems like it's been hell week for a lot of people, and me included to it in a certain way, in a couple of ways. But the first thing I want to do is I just want to send out my my good energy, whatever bit of it I have, to the people that have been suffering lately. And just to give you an example of some of the things that people around me have been going through, and without getting too specific, I've seen visitation disputes. I've seen dead loved ones. I've seen people who have had to put their pets down. I've seen today I saw where a friend of the family's house burned down and they lost everything up to and including the kids' Christmas this year, and they're going to need some help getting back on their feet. And that one actually indirectly affected me, but it's kind of selfish to even go into that because it's really inconsequential how it played out on me. So to the Brown family, I'm very sorry about what you guys are going through. I'm not being specific about all the other things because I haven't talked to everybody, and I don't know if they want their personal business shared. So just I'm not going to go too in depth. These are just examples of what I've seen. For me, it's been a little bit of seasonal depression, but what really hit me was a little over a week ago. I got a text message from a friend of a friend that someone who used to be a pretty close friend of mine passed away. I recorded a podcast about this previously, and I went on about it for about 20 minutes, but I was very scattered in my thoughts. I still can't claim to be 100%, with it, but there's something I want to pull up here, and my computers are running a little bit slow, so if I can get it up here. Oh, that's just me being dumb. Okay, so as this loads up, I just want to start off by saying the name of my friend who passed away, and the name of maybe a few people who will listen to this as friend as well, is Jason Hilton. He was living in Vincennes, Indiana. So his obituary just says at 37, he passed away Sunday, December 17th in Mitchell while visiting a friend. It lists some of his relatives, and the most noteworthy of which is his son, whose name I'm not gonna give out. There's not that many people listening, but if you know, you know. If you don't, it's really not that important, but they really don't say a whole lot, so I don't know what happened, and I'm not going to speculate. I don't know how the last, year or so of Jason's life has gone for him. It's the unfortunate thing that happens as we grow older. Sometimes we lose contact with people, particularly sometimes the friends we make at work. But I feel like he deserves a little more than that. So at the time I knew Jason, he had been through a lot. He had battled addiction, and he was working his ass off to try to take care of his son. He was doing it single-handedly, and I give him major props for that. He was always good-natured. He always had he always had a smile, and he was friends with everyone we worked with. He had a good sense of humor, and he didn't mind being the butt of the joke, and he really didn't dole out a whole lot of ones where other people were. I spent many a night playing Call of Duty 2 or Call of Duty Black Ops 2 with him. And the games were inconsequential. It was the man-to-man talks we had many, many times till the wee hours of the morning. So regardless of the circumstances that he left us, which, like I said, I don't know the details, and regardless of whatever they were, I'm always going to remember that he had a heart of gold. He made a good impact on me and most of the people he was around. So long, buddy. I'm going to miss you. So the one story, as far as the lasting impact that Hilton's had on me, is he could never pronounce my last name correctly, Matt Jablonski. For some reason, he just couldn't get it. So he always called me Jabowski. And when some friends and I started up our a little rap group for fun a couple years ago, I needed a name, and Jabowski stuck with me. It sounds like Lebowski. I'm a big guy, so I figured I could be the big Jabowski. And no matter what, anytime I ever release a rap song or do a rap song, from now on, that will always be the moniker I use. Out of love and respect for Jason Hilton. And Hilt will remain my clan tag on Black Ops 2 going forward. So I wish I'd have kept in touch with you better, buddy. I hope you're in a better place now, and I hope your pain has subsided. God bless you, and I'll try to always remember you, buddy. So with that said, I'm going to move on into some thoughts I had written down here. I'm going to bring in the intro now. It's a little bit different than I've done before. Might not sound quite as good, but I'm doing the best I can here. Anyway, all right, let's get this party started.
Welcome, motherfuckers, to the Mad Signal Podcast.
It's a little weird starting that intro late like that. So, welcome again to the Matt Signal. I am your host, Matt Jablonski. This is the podcast that not only shoots first, it also shoots blanks, and I thank you very much if you've chosen to join me. A little bit sullen today, as you heard in the cold open there. But I'm going to try to match that with some levity right off the bat. I've talked about some things in pop culture where I feel that people are unfairly critical of things, and I don't know if unfair is the right way to put it, because really, I mean, we're all entitled to our own opinions. So sometimes I just feel like I don't understand people's expectations, but They're their expectations, not mine. So I guess what do I need to understand? So that's just a long-winded way of saying I'd like to discuss what I thought about Eminem's new album Revival. I saw some very, very polarized reviews online. One guy I know who actually does uh, a lot of serious writing. He's about to drop a double album, and I hope that he doesn't mind me mentioning him on here. His name is his rap name is Kyle Holloway. He's out of Wisconsin. He went to the same high school as me. He came up like a year or two behind me. And admittedly, I was a person who was critical of his dream back in the day. But I've since grown to learn that being critical of people's dreams is a shitty thing to do unless those dreams involve like robbery, rape, murder, child molestation, things like that. If you dream of that shit, you're fucked and you should go to hell. But that has nothing to do with K Holla or the new Eminem album. Anyway, look him up. He's pretty good. His production's gotten better over the course of his releases. I'm not sure what his process is, how much he does by himself. I'm sure he shouts out his producers if he has them or whatever. Bottom line is he's got good flows, he's got good rhymes, he's a good guy. He is an asshole, but he's a funny asshole, so hopefully you don't mind. But check him out. Support the small guy. So to look at Eminem's new album a little bit, I guess the first thing I'll do is just start with what I don't like. And the first thing I don't like is the first thing that comes up on the album, and that's Walk on Water featuring Beyonce. The hook was actually written by Skylar Grey. And the funny thing is I saw her, when the single came out, posting online about how this was like her goal as a songwriter. This was what she was really going for. And if what she means was to have a smash single with Eminem and Beyonce singing your words, then yeah, god damn it, you really reached a milestone, no doubt. But are you really going to say that's the best thing you've ever written? Because we don't have to go that far on the same album before we actually find a much better written song that you perform yourself, but I'll get into that later. As far as other songs that I don't particularly care for on the album, Remind Me. Sometimes Eminem sampled songs, particularly that the older rock songs that he uses. Just for some reason, those songs come off as obnoxious. This one's a radio song to an extent. I mean, it's dirty, but it can be cleaned up for radio. It's got that recognizable hook, which will draw people in. And Eminem actually, he put in one joke in the song that saves the whole song for me and makes me not hate it. And that is I don't know the bars exactly, but when he explains that everyone knows that real tits are fun, but we also know that fake tits are better than real ones. And every time I listen to that song, and I'm just kind of like, and then that hits me out of left field, and it cracks me up again. So that kind of pulls the whole song out of it for me. Like Home came off a little preachy, and sort of redundant, because of what he did with Untouchable, which I'll get into soon, because that's actually Untouchable is going to fall in my like category. And then, is there anything else I really don't like on the album? I mean, there's a couple other songs I don't listen to. Need Me, big production, features Pink, so two major. I mean, Eminem's obviously, he's a rapper, he's a hip-hop star, but he's also a major crossover pop artist. So you have two very, very big pop artists on that song, but and it's very theatrical. And I'm not even going to say the story it tells is a good one because it's very relatable. It's, the toxic couple, which, I mean, obviously that's been a theme throughout all of Eminem's albums. But I really just... the way the song comes together just doesn't do it for me. really, I mean, the rest of the songs I at least can enjoy after multiple listens. So if we're gonna get into it, the first thing I like is the second track is "Believe." The the way that he does this song, um, he has Fresher on the hook, who I am not familiar with his other work, but I know that he sounds like a sort of typical. It's a typical Dirty South kind of hook, I think, and it's really got that kind of modern. There's a modern twist that a lot of guys are doing, and he's got that, but his delivery's good, and he doesn't sound like a lazy jackass when he does it. So I'm not offended by it. But the flows that he does in that song are the run of the mill, typical flows that like every lazy ass rapper is doing now. But the way that he does them is the lyricism, the precise timing, the staccato rhythm, the double timing at times in them, and like he just takes those flows that everyone does now, and he destroys them to the point where I don't know if I'd want to come out behind him and do it unless I was bringing something really intense. And of course, I'll never be on that level. For one, I'm too lazy to write the depth of material that one would need in order to get there. But I have also, my mind is sort of split in different directions, which might be a different a topic I get into in a little bit. But so Believe is a standout track for me. I just mixed it up with Chloroseptic. Chloroseptic is the one with Fresher on the hook. But he does the same thing in both songs. He's just killing the fad flows. He's destroying them in ways that these guys, like the freshman class guys and stuff, just absolutely to me, in my opinion, don't. River is a interesting song with Ed Sheeran. Story. That's a rough story of having to make the decision to abort a baby because the completely fucked circumstances in which it was brought about. Other standouts, Framed is a pretty hilarious kind of, it's almost like a horrorcore song, which was a big thing in Detroit, and Eminem's always had an element of that to him. That killer thing that they have in Detroit. There's a lot of weird rappers there, a lot of really weird, good rappers there. Nowhere Fast is cool. Heat's pretty cool. Offended is a badass song. In Your Head is good. A Rose is pretty cool. Castle is a little. That one it's a lot about raising Haley through a life where they have to kind of be isolated. That's what I took away from it, and it's sort of his apology for that. Bad Husband was good, and is sort of his coming to terms with Kim and all the things he said about her over the years, and sort of like he did with his mom on the last album. So, I don't mind a guy at his age trying to close some chapters in his life. So that leaves Untouchable, which I thought was an interesting, really cool song. There's almost two completely separate beats in it. The song is spent rapping from a couple of different perspectives. Each verse, he kind of does the high-pitched nasally thing for a while and then switches back into his regular voice where you can tell, part of it's him just sarcastically describing the dynamic between black Americans and police and black Americans and white Americans in power and black Americans and white Americans who refuse to see the difference in the level of disparity that poor black Americans have versus poor white Americans. I think that you're going to find that there are going to be a certain amount of deaf ears for that kind of message because they are determined that things are equal and there needs to be no more changes made. And I mean, sometimes you just can't fix stupid. These are people who've never taken the time to step out and see another person's situation. And that's not me saying, hey, I had a pretty shit roll of the dice. I know a lot of people that did, but I don't think any of us had to deal with like institutionalized racism that, like, whether you want to admit it or not, it does come out. And I think it was pretty cool for Eminem as a pretty powerful, prominent white person who has made his entire living off of um, doing something that originated in the black community, and he is sort of using his platform and his status as a reputable white businessman to say, hey, things are a little fucked up here, and you don't have to be black to think that. So I've actually got a lot of respect for that. So overall, obviously, I liked a lot more than I didn't. I disagree with the reviews that, this is it. He's not the same guy he was, in 1999. And is that a bad thing? Because, if I was the same guy I was in 1999, I'd still be a 13-year-old kid. So I don't know that the idea that he's grown away from some of the old habits that he had, and so, sort of changed his perspective on things, and he's decided to become a little more politically active with his with some of his work. I don't hold the past against him because he's been very open and honest about taking responsibility for the things he's done in the past. So I don't think that just because he's done things in the past, he doesn't have a valid voice now. I think that's a weird sort of logical fallacy. It's not a plausible argument, really. And I think it just comes from a place of denial and willful ignorance, because sometimes it's easier to go along with what you believe than to accept, the actual truth of the matter. That's not to make excuses for anybody. I just can't. I mean, we can't control what everybody decides to believe, and at a certain point, I think we got to realize that there is a certain demographic that's just unreachable, and you can only do so much to silence that, and you can't really silence it so much. You just got to prove it wrong. And I think if you shine a light on stupid long enough, that most people are going to run away from it, and the ones who remain stupid they're going to shrink back into their holes, and they're going to eventually die off. I think I've said this many times so far, we're in a transitional phase in society. There is going to be pushback on it, and I just give it time. And don't give up. Like, by all means, keep doing what you're doing, but understand there's going to be pushback. There's going to be people who don't get on board, and I would like to see the people who are on what I believe to be the right side of history resort less to being the same kind of negative people that some of their counterparts are. And that's just my wishful thinking. But so, speaking of wishful thinking, I've been here talking about like big issues, and I've had to sort of look at things a little bit differently. And I've had some help with that, through listening to other people who have, I think, gone further and done more work on themselves than I have. And they're people with perspectives that I admire and look up to. So I'm just going to go ahead and give credit for this sort of idea before I don't want to risk sounding like I'm just ripping off another person's idea, but it is something worth talking about. And it's Duncan Trussell. He's a stand-up comedian. He has his own podcast called Duncan Trussell's Family Hour. He appears on the Joe Rogan podcast, a lot through the early years, a little less frequently now. But at a certain point, he sort of adopts a philosophy, or at least starts talking about a philosophy where a lot of people are more concerned about the bigger picture than their own sort of part of it. And what he believes that to be, and what I would assume he's probably read, and he's done more thinking about this. This is still a pretty new concept for me, but he's done more thinking on it, and it sort of comes from the ego, where you have a desire to a desire. You have I think a lot of us have a tendency to be in denial about our weaker qualities and the things that we do that are less uh, becoming or less in line with who we want to be or who we picture ourselves as, and sort of as a way from detracting ourselves from looking inward, we look to the world and its problems and trying to try to put band-aids on major things, and band-aids on bullet wounds, basically, when the reality of the fact is, how much business do I have talking about race relations when I've got a severe weight problem that is out of control? And how much business do I have talking about corruption in politics when I can't stop smoking? And it's a really good thing that I haven't become a chemtrails guy, because that would make no sense. So I have been thinking about the fact that, of course, I'm going to observe the world around me, but I definitely need to spend more time diving inward. And so to sort of give an idea of what I'm looking at is, I've had to come to grips with the realization that there's definitely more you can be addicted to than chemical substances. I mean, I guess if we're going to be technical, everything's a chemical substance, but you know what I mean, drugs. Like, I've had to come to terms with the fact that addiction is definitely much more than drugs. And recognize the fact that for better or worse, or for whatever reason, the action, the behavior that I have manifested more than anything in my addictive personality is food. And I also still cling to cigarettes. So what I'm having to look at is what steps I need to take in order to try to encourage myself to make better decisions, because obviously the thought of health alone isn't doing it for me. I'm going to have to find another way to work on this. And it's really stressed me out, because it does, like, I was always athletic and fat at the same time until a certain point when you're not anymore. And what basically happens is especially if you're athletic and you work physical jobs, which I did when I was younger, I was always carrying around more weight than everyone else. So I was probably beating myself up a little bit harder than everybody else. And that stuff took a toll on me and hit me younger than a lot of other people do get hit with chronic pain. And so for years I've been dealing with chronic pain, but it's been mounting. And as it's mounted over the years, at times I've sort of I've made a couple little comebacks. I've hulked up a little bit. I've made the hot tag to myself and got in the game and made a little bit of a comeback, lost, a good chunk of weight and was feeling good. And then somewhere along the line, something derails me and I just take off into an addictive spiral. And the last big catalyst for me was the last surgery I had, which was on my knee. It was a little over a year ago. And I've had moments of clarity between then and now. Actually, I guess it's almost been 2 years. I've had times where I've done a little better, and then I always slip back into it. And I don't know. I'm not blaming the surgery. I'm just saying that's where I noticed the time. I went from a breakup, had surgery, had another short relationship, and I've still been around that person. Anyway, had a lot of chaos and emotional bullshit to deal with. And on top, I've just not been able to keep my head above water very long. I've just been able to get up and take a breath here and there. So I'm trying to wake myself up a little bit, trying to grab hold of this thing. And that brings me into a little bit of talk about New Year's resolutions. Now, I don't usually do these mainly because I think most of us that when we do, we end up, most of us don't get them. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but for the sake of what I'm doing here, I figured I might as well come up with a few um, goals I'd like to try to attain in the next year. So, to start with, I gave myself until my birthday for a couple of them, which is March 10th. It's not that much time, but these I think are more attainable. These are the more attainable goals of my list. One's more challenging than the other, I think. So the big health goal to achieve by March 10th is to stop smoking. Pretty self-explanatory. Explanatory there. I don't want to get cancer at this rate. I probably already have it, but that's one goal. The other goal is I would like to do my first open mic also by my birthday, which means I need to come up, 10 minutes of material or something. I've got maybe 5. So getting there. Definitely been writing, and that's something I'm gonna really try to do. I don't know how the local open mic here. I've been too honestly. I've been too much of a puss to go check it out so far. Nothing scares me more than that stage, which is what's exciting about it. For like something that really makes me feel that much when I look at it, I feel like is probably there's something in that. And the first time I realized it was actually my second stand-up comedy show, and I was fortunate. My second stand-up comedy show was Kyle Kinane, and he destroyed it. I can't remember the name of the special. I know that I've just recently watched all of his specials, and it was definitely the hour that he did. It might have been 2 specials ago, I think. Man, he was awesome. I saw him at the Comedy Attic in Bloomington, Indiana. And as I was realizing how well he was destroying the room, I've never been in an environment with so many people laughing so hard. It was awesome. But somewhere in that, I realized that I wanted to be where he was. And I wanted that attention. So, I mean, if we're going to be honest, there's definitely a need for attention and wanting to do stand-up comedy. And then I realized, like, it started occurring to me, like, how much work went into him being there that day. From the time he started comedy until the day he was standing in front of me in what is a small town 50 miles south of a bigger market, which is 2 hours south, several hours south of his home market, which is way bigger than Indianapolis. So, like, what all did it go into for him to be able to play that small club within several hours' drive of his hometown, but to be getting that reaction and to also be working his way up to another special where he absolutely kills it every time so far. So I realized at once that I wanted to be there and I was afraid of it. And I respected him so much just watching him do his thing, because then I realized that, like, there's an art form going on in front of me that I don't quite understand yet. Like, I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. And I take all of the big timers seriously when they talk about how hard it is. I believe them. I don't take it lightly that I want to go step on their on the stage that is their profession. And I don't take it lightly that I know that I'm going to suck when I first do it. And I imagine that feeling must be horrible, but I'm going to have to power through that. But anyway, that's sort of where I realized this was something I kind of wanted to do. And that's been a couple of years ago now. And I haven't acted on it yet. But to be writing is definitely an improvement over where I was. So we're going to move on from that and move into the my next goal is it's going to be until around May, and I'm not going to say like hardcore on a certain day, but either I need to move to I need to do some kind of move up the ladder in the organization I work for, or I need to cash in whatever chips I can and move on to something different. I can't stay stagnant anymore in my professional life, regardless of whether what I'm doing for money is what I want to do for my career or not. That's not the point. I've got to be happy with where I'm at, and I'm currently not. And I just, I'm single with no dependents, and what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to throw me in jail for not having money to pay some shit right now? I don't know. Fuck them. But, not fuck them forever. I intend to pay my bills, but man, I gotta fucking make more money than I'm making, and I'm not. That's part of why I'm giving myself this, because if I'm not going to move up where I'm at, then I got to go find somewhere that I can make more happen. And if they're not going to give me that, I'm going to have to go somewhere I can take it. So, that brings me to my year-long goals. The first thing I want to do is complete my first album of at least 8 songs. And I use the number 8 because many, many bands that I respect have put out 8-song LPs. It's a pretty common thing. So that's one goal. The other is to lose 100 pounds. I think that most possibly I could probably outdo that. But I want to set it as realistic, and I need to get a lot of this weight off of me. I think 100's a good goal for a year. So those are what I'm looking at sort of for New Year's resolutions right now. Feel free to interact with my posts online, and or find me, shoot me a message, whatever you want to do. And let's talk about it. Or not. So I sort of started heading towards a couple of different topics I've been wanting to talk about while I was going through those New Year's resolutions. And the one thing I want to talk about is I've been doing all this sort of introspective shit because I've kind of, it dawned on me that I've been acting more and more like an asshole lately. And that's when I sometimes I say things or I do things, or I maybe judge a person too harshly, or do if you hear that, that's me rubbing my eye. That's gross. I just realized I was treating people in a way that I am not proud of. And then I had to sort of step back and start looking at what's different, what's going on. That's when I realized I'm sort of going through a funk right now, a depression of some sort. And I need to sort of do the best I can to get a hold of that. And that's why I'm putting it out like this, so I can state it. I can say it out of my fucking face, and know that I've breathed it into the universe, that I'm aware of this, so I need to be taking steps to sort of fix it. One thing that I think will help is I'm looking to get a surgery real soon to repair a hernia. I've been putting off for a while. The pain is getting a little too much, and it's getting worse. It's getting bigger, and I need to get that taken care of. So hopefully, within the next couple months, I'll be back to 100% of whatever percent I'm at, and then we'll go from there. And I'll work on the physical improvements as well as the emotional, the mental growth, and maybe bring them all together and develop a better me. So there's not a whole lot else to discuss, except for I am excited about I wanted to talk about a little bit of the positive of Christmas, and that is For one, anytime I get to see my niece and nephew happy, I'm pretty stoked, and they had a good year. And sort of my adoptive niece, who I don't think she realizes how much we think she's cool. It looks like she had a really good year too. She got she got to get a baby bearded dragon, which is pretty fucking rad. And the kids were pretty happy, which made me happy. There was a little bit of the typical family malarkey that went on over Christmas. I try not to get too involved in that. In my mind, we're all family, and none of us. I'm trying to just cast a wide net, so I'm not singling anybody out. It's not one person; it's all of us. And this extends out into society as well. I don't think, as people, we're taking enough time to try to understand what's in the other person's heart, because I think sometimes we feel slighted by something where there was no slight intended, and I see this all the way around. It's not one person, and I'm not sticking up for any one person over another. If any of you hear this, you're all my family. I love you, and I wish that we could find a way to put this anger we have in our family the fuck behind us, because it comes up all the time at the worst times, and it's tiresome. I love you all. Please remember your family, and don't forget to love each other. It's okay to get mad. It's okay to be hurt. But don't forget to love each other, because, we're family, God damn it. But as far as what I got for Christmas, I got the usual $100 from my parents, which is cool. I got a Old Spice bath shaving kit, whatever, which is like Old Spice is my jam, except for Pit Stick. I like Degree for Men on that. I think it works with my body chemistry. But I was happy with that. I'm happy with nothing as long as I get to see people and everyone seems happy. But what was really cool was my mom always likes to get something and then try to get me super excited about it and guessing what it is, and I never play into her game, ever. I will never do it, but I thought I knew what she was doing this year, and she actually got one over on me and made it sweeter. So, and Mom knows that, excuse me, sorry. Let me get a little Bevsky here. That's that smoker's lung. So I thought that I had figured out what she was doing this year. My mom is working with some people on paranormal stuff, and trying to do like some live internet radio shows and stuff like that. So she's been getting some equipment to pod also. However, she kind of overbought because she just went on someone's, what they recommended for equipment, and she went a little over budget for what she actually needed. And I helped her figure out, hey, we could scale this way back. But my operation, on the other hand, is a little ridiculous. I've got 2 computers running at any given time. I've got a TV set up for an external monitor, so that way if I'm talking about something with someone, eventually, like, I want to have people sit here with me. I have done talks with people, but they're not. Things have been rough. I haven't got them edited yet, but so that way, if we get to on a tangent, we can look up information. We can not just be Of course, we'll play the, we're gonna guess at what things mean before we actually Google them, because before Google that was fun. But I just really wanted this to be like, I really want to pour myself into this thing because I think it's fun. I think I actually surprised myself by not hating my voice, even though sometimes I listen to what I had to say and I feel a little stupid afterwards. But I feel like this is something I can grow with, and I just really like it. And for some reason, I feel like it's something I want to do. So that being said, Mom got me a what I thought. Here's what happened. She had bought this mixer, and I thought because we realized she didn't need the mixer. It was more than she needed. I thought, and she was going to send it back. I thought maybe that instead of sending it back, she was just going to gift it to me. And so I called her out on it. I was like, I think I know what you did. And she's like, you're wrong, but I still have it, and I love you. So Merry Christmas. Here you go. You can have it. And that was fucking sweet. Like, that was awesome. I didn't expect that. And I was just trying to harass her back. And I ended up, she ended up giving me the bridge between my computers, what makes it so that I can drop the intro instead of having it pre-placed in my digital audio workspace. I can actually just, hit it on the other computer and record it in, and maybe it's not quite the same sound quality, but not everything has to be perfect. The most important thing is my voice and the voice of anyone else who's live on the show. So thank you, Mom. I really appreciate that. But what she also got me was she got me a green screen and a lighting kit. So that way, eventually, I do plan to get some. And I'm probably going to start out on the cheap end. I'm going to get some 1080p webcams or something like that, and hopefully build up from there in time. But the idea that I will have the ability to do some stuff with chroma key is kind of fun. Eventually, so I have that gear now too, which is awesome. So I came out like a bandit this year. I got more than I deserved, and I felt really blessed for that. It was a bright moment in a stormy couple of weeks, and Christmas Day was good. We got to see Uncle Eddie, my uncle who lives in Georgia. We don't get to see him all that often. I missed him the last time he was up, so I was excited when I found out on my way there that he was there. Excuse me again. So I think that's going to wrap up most of my thoughts, but that brings me to someone I want to give a little special attention to, because what she did was very, very nice, and I can't let it go unaddressed. I got a letter or a card from a friend in the mail, and she actually addressed the envelope to the Matt Signal, which was pretty funny and pretty awesome at the same time to see that. So I I don't know if I should read the whole thing, but she sent me a card with some very nice words on it, and a pretty damn funny picture on it. With some writing she put on it. It kind of looks like a meme of an old painting or something. But inside the card, she included $20, and she just said that she wanted to support the podcast. So Sheila Schnauts, Sheila, what the fuck is your last name now? It's not Schnauts anymore. God, I fucked up. I fucked up. Unfortunately, I don't live in Wisconsin anymore, so I don't catch all the invites for weddings and things. Like last name changes sometimes escape me. So Sheila Kaufman, Sheila Ann Kaufman on the book face. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Having the support of some of my friends, even though you're so far away, means a lot to me. This means I'm going to make you Skype into the pod sometime before too long. So I haven't spoken to you about that at all. That's just, I'm telling you, that's going to happen. Thank you so much. The card was super sweet. The $20 was unnecessary, but also super sweet. And I appreciate that you care enough to show me like that. So Sheila, you are the homegirl of the day. That's probably not going to be a recurring segment, but I just want to make sure that everyone else knows how cool you've been and how nice you've been to me. So We're rolling up on 50 minutes. I'm running out of things to say. I'm gonna try to, get back to doing one episode every weekend or some shit like that. In the meantime, the in-between time, I love your face and go fuck yourself. Goodbye.